As Moncton prepares to honor 3 RCMP officers killed on duty, the question lingers, how could a shooting so familiar in the United States happen here in Canada? We talk to an expert on gun control. Also, the final pitch, each Ontario leader in under 30 seconds. I'm Affan Chowdhry. Welcome to Globe Now. The city of Moncton is preparing to honor 3 RCMP officers killed last week. The RCMP says a regimental funeral will be held Tuesday at 1 p.m. local time. A parade of police officers from across the country will be held beforehand, the kind we've seen in the past when police have been killed in the line of duty. The alleged shooter, Justin Bourque, was arrested Friday and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder. The shootings in Moncton shocked Canadians. It is the kind of gun violence that feels almost routine in the United States. On Thursday, a shooter went on a rampage at a private university in Seattle, killing 1 and injuring 2 others. Over the weekend in Las Vegas, 2 shooters ambushed and killed 2 on-duty police officers while they ate lunch. And then there is Elliot Rogers, who went on a knife and gun rampage near the University of California in Santa Barbara, killing 6. Joining us now is Jennifer Carlson, assistant professor of sociology at the University of Toronto and an expert on gun culture and gun violence. We've reached her in Detroit. Welcome. Many Canadians are wondering after the Moncton shootings, how can something that feels routine in the U.S. happen here in Canada? What do you say to that?
Well, I think one of the important things to do, when there's a massive, awful tragedy like what has happened, is to kind of step back and kind of look at the broader context of these shootings and what's actually going on. And when we do that, we actually see that there's some really deep differences between the U.S. and Canada. So, for example, if we think about gun violence, if we take away gun homicides and just look at homicides not involving guns, in fact, the rates aren't so different in the U.S. versus Canada. But once we add gun homicides back in, or once we look just at gun homicides, we actually see that the rate is 6-fold higher in the U.S. than in Canada.
So Jennifer, it's very hard to argue that somehow Canadian gun culture and American gun culture are somehow converging. But what is the difference in your mind between the two?
In my mind, I think one of the most significant differences is actually something that's unfolded in the U.S. Over the past several decades, which is that there's been a huge swing in American gun culture toward protection. So Americans used to, just like Canadians, own guns primarily for the purposes of hunting. Mm-hmm. Now Americans cite protection. More Americans than ever before cite protection as the reason for owning guns. And they can also do more with those guns in terms of protection. So they can carry guns legally in the U.S. as part of their everyday lives. So they can use guns as tools of protection in public space, which is something that Canadians cannot generally do. So the importance of protection, I think, is really the centrality of that in U.S. gun culture really distinguishes American gun culture from Canada.
So people in Moncton, New Brunswick will wonder, how do you stop these shootings from happening?
So that's a very, that is a simple question with a very complex answer. One of the things that, has kind of come to my mind after watching this string of shootings that's happened over the past couple of weeks is actually a parallel between Justin Bourque and Elliot Rogers. In both cases, you have the parents saying, we tried to notify authorities, we tried to get help for our son, we saw that something was amiss. And in both cases, both of them kind of fell off the radar. Even in the case of Elliot Rogers, where the police actually came out and said, hey, let's check out what's happening with this guy. What's interesting in California is that it's one of this, there's not really any database for, there's no gun registration, certainly not at the national level in the U.S. But California does have a database of gun owners, and they don't call it gun registration, but it is effectively gun registration. There's no reason the police couldn't have gone into that database and, tried to check out, does Elliot Rogers have any guns? Mm-hmm. And so that's, kind of figuring out how to make that interface a little bit smoother, mm-hmm. In terms of parents saying, hey, we're trying to notify the authorities, and police, either not thinking to figure out if there's an issue of guns involved or not being able to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Well, we want to hear from you. What do you think the shootings in Moncton say about gun culture and violence in Canada? Tweet us at Globe Now. Stay with us. Up next, we hear from each Ontario leader as they make their final pitch ahead of Thursday's vote. Well, it's the final stretch for the Ontario Premier candidates. People will be going to the polls this Thursday. So we asked each of the leaders to tell us why they should be Premier in under 30 seconds.
30 seconds or less, tell us why you should be Premier.
We have a plan that's well thought out. It's fully costed to invest in the talent and skills of people in this province, to invest in infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, the transit that we know is needed, and to make sure that we have a business climate that allows government to partner with business and allows business to thrive. That's why we want to be re-elected, and that's the plan we're bringing to the people of the province.
We need a Premier who's going to focus on creating more jobs, getting our economy back on track, and to make government work for you, not for the insiders. So I've got a plan to get taxes down, more affordable energy, a big focus on the skilled trades, and a government we can afford. That's going to create more jobs, better take-home pay, and make sure that we eliminate the waste so crucial public services will be available the best of its kind in North America.
Well, you know what? People don't have to vote between a corrupt Liberal Party that wastes your money and a Tim Hudak's plan to fire 100,000 people. You can vote for a party that makes sense, that protects your tax dollars and invests them in jobs, in affordability, in our healthcare system and education. The NDP plan makes sense, and it's an opportunity for people to bring the change that they want to this province.
Well, that's all for today's show. Let us know your thoughts on gun culture in Canada, or tell us what you think about the Ontario Premier candidate's 30-second pitch. Hop onto Twitter. We're at Globe Now. I'm Affan Chowdhry. Thanks again for watching.